Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. All grace to his confounder Charles Evangelist Prabhupada. You're welcome, Maharaj.
Jai. Okay, we left off with second canto, chapter 3, verse 20.
I think it was text 19 we stopped, Maharaj.
What?
We read the last we read was 19. So we're going to 20.
I can hear you.
The last verse we read was second canto chapter 3, verse number 19. So we're supposed to
start with 20.
Yes, Maharaj.
That's my mark. So, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarane. Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tvishe Namaha. Panchatatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Right. Okay. These are verses comparing the life of a conditioned soul that's not worshiping Krishna to different animals. The different parts of the body, how they're useless if they're not engaged in Krishna's service. Vile Vato Rukrama Vikramam Ye Nashin Vitak Karna Vate Narasya Jivasati Dardur Keva Sutta Nachopa Gayat Urugaya Gataha. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead, and has not sung or chanted loudly worthy songs about the Lord, is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snakes and the tongue like the tongue of a frog. Okay, now who can read this purport?
Madhuvanta, we can start.
Okay, Hare Krishna Maharaj. The purport: devotional service of the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. It is the transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, a devotee is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord. One can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord. And one can render service to the Lord with the help of all senses. As such, the senses and the action of the senses are to be considered as impure or materialistic, as long as they are employed in sense gratification only. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification, but in the service of the Lord in toto. The Lord is the supreme with all senses. And the servitor, who is part and parcel of the Lord, also has the same senses. Service of the Lord is completely purified. Service of the Lord is the completely purified use of the senses, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses, and thus there was a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electrical charge from the master to the disciple, as it is foolishly claimed by some propaganda mongers. Everything is full of sense and logic, and the exchange of views between the master and the disciple is possible when the reception is submissive and real only. In the Chintan Charitamrita, it is said that one should receive the teachings of Lord Chintan with intellect and full senses so that one can logically understand the great mission. In the pure state of a living being, the respective senses are fully engaged in mundane affairs. If the ear is not engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing about him in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Mahabharata, certainly the holes of the ear will be filled up with some rubbish. Therefore, the messages of Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata should be preached all over the world very loudly. That is the duty of a pure devotee who has actually heard about them from the past sources. Many want to speak something to others, but because they are not trained up to speak on the subject matter of the Vedic wisdom, they are all speaking nonsense, and the people are giving them no sense. There are hundreds and thousands of sources for distributing mundane news of the world, and people of the world also receiving them. Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the star speaks of the Lord, and the devotees of the Lord must speak loudly so that they can hear. The frogs loudly cry with the result that invite the snakes to eat them. Human being is especially given for chanting the Vedic and not cracking like the frogs. The word asati used in this verse is also significant. Asati means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. Similarly, the tongue, which is given to the human being for chanting the Vedic hymns, will be considered a prostitute when it is engaged in the matter of chanting some mundane nonsense. Text 21.
And anyway, when you read these purports, Prabhupada is constantly telling us, what we're supposed to be doing, what our movement is for, why we're keeping temples, why we're coming together, why we're studying, what are we supposed to do, what is the condition of the world. It's not just to rescue ourselves, but to teach everybody, like Prabhupada had that vision. So take this seriously, please. Text 21. I'll read the translation. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden, if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead.
Tamala Krishna Prabhu, can you read? Purport. Tamala Krishna Prabhu. Tamala Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. As stated here before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotees does not at all see anything who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotees make distinctions between devotees and the non-devotees. The second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work, and as reference to in the above verses, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotees accept disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotees also come down to the category of the second class devotees for preaching work. But the common man who is expected to become at least a third class devotee is advised therein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even though he may be very rich man, or even a kind with a sack burden or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great king and emperors. And men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of the Lord Shri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. The Lord in the temple, in the worshipable form, is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood. For the Lord in his Acha incarnation as the deity in the temple show immense favor to the foreign souls by the auspicious presence. But the hearing process, as mentioned, hearing before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process in the routine work of devotional service, hearing is the essential point. Hearing by all class of devotees from the authentic source like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. The common man who is puffed up with his material position and does not bow down before the Lord, before the deities of the Lord in the temple, or who defer temple worship without any knowledge of this science, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more softly than those who have no heavy weight. A foolish prophet that man defy the senses, the signs of God, and say that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in a grip of God's law and is catched by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, that godly man sink into the ocean of nuisance by the weight of his material acquisition. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of mundane society. And so one must take heed of this great warning. The common man, if he has no time to worship the Lord, may at least engage his hand for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Pratap Parudra, the greatly powerful king of Arisa, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities, yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of the Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. The ideal is that however important a man one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God's consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Maharaj Pratapuradra, subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king, so much so that even the great pattern in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Patapuradra. And at the least, Maharaj Patapuradra was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very ground of his acceptance of subordination in the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering, bangling made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. Hare Krishna.
All right, quite comprehensive, huh? So we did see in, was it in Nigeria? Sometimes the king would become somewhat of a devotee, being very respectful to Guru. Generally, the rich men are very puffed up and they think everyone should bow down to them. The eyes, which should not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead. Vishnu, his forms, name, qualities, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of a peacock, and the legs, which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered, are considered to be like tree trunks. Nice analogies, huh? That's one of the things you study that is part of the course. All these analogies Prabhupada gives to, because we can't fully describe the spiritual world, but you can make some comparison to give some idea. Okay, who can read this?
Kamalacha Prabhu, can you read? Is Grace Kamalacha to read? Kamalacha Prabhu, can you unmute and read?
Can I continue?
No, Kamalacha Prabhu should read.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Go ahead, Kamalacha Prabhu.
I'm not saying I'm not.
The purport is on the
The
screen.
purport, especially for the household devotee, the part of the deity worship is strongly recommended as far as possible. Every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master, must install the deity of Vishnu. Forms like Radha, Krishna, Lakshmi, Narayan, or Sitaram especially, or any other form of the Lord, like Nisima, Varaha, Guranitai, Matsya, Kuma, Shalagram, Shila, and many other forms of Vishnu, like Trivikram, Kesava, Achyuta, Vasudev, Narayan, and Damodar, as recommended in the Vaishnava Tantras or Puranas, and one's family should worship strictly following the direction and regulations of family. Any member of the family who is above 12 years of age should be initiated by my spiritual master, and all the members of the household to be engaged in the daily service of God. Beginning from morning 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. by performing Mangalarati, Nirijan, Achan, Puja, Ketan, Sringara, Boga, Vaikali, and Satya Arati, Arata, Boga at night, Sana Arati, etc. The deity, under the direction of the bonfire spiritual master, will greatly help the hospital to purify their very existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. Simply, theoretical book knowledge is not sufficient for a notified devotee. Book knowledge is typical, whereas the actual process is practical. Spiritual knowledge must be developed by a combination of theoretical and practical knowledge. And that is a guaranteed way for attainment of spiritual perfection. The training of devotional service for a neophyte devotee completely depends on the expert spiritual master who knows how to lead disciples to make progress towards the path back to God. One should not become a solo spiritual master as a matter of business to meet one's family expenditure. But be an expert spiritual master disciples from the clutches of Benedict Shira Vishwanath Chakravarti has defined the bona fide qualities of a spiritual master. And one of the verses in that description reads, Sri Vrigahara Ananitya Nana Singarata Madhira Majanado.
Yeah, we sing that every morning in Mangalartik, so you should know that one.
Yotaksya Bhaktam Sana Nija Jopi Vande Guru Sri Chanarara Vinda. Sri Vrigrahara is the acha or suitable worshipable form of the Lord. And the disciple should be engaged in worshiping the deity regularly by Sringara, by proper decoration and dressing, as also by Mandya Majana, the matter of cleansing the temple. The spiritual master teaches the neophyte devotees all this kindly and personally to help him gradually in the realization of the transcendental name. One attention engaged, only attention engaged in the service of the Lord, especially in blessing and decorating the temple, accompanied by musical kirtan and spiritual instructions from scriptures, can save the common man from the hellish cinema attractions and rubbish sections everywhere by radios. If one is unable to maintain a temple at home, he should go to another temple where all the above functions are regularly executed. The temple of a devotee fuels the modern mind with spiritual inspiration. People should visit holy places like Vrindavan,
where such temples and worship of the deity are specifically maintained. Formerly, all rich men like kings and rich merchants constructed such temples under the direction of expert devotees of the Lord, like the 6 Goswamis. It is a duty of the common man to take advantage of these temples and festivals observed in the holy places of pilgrimage by following the footsteps of the great devotees Anuvraja. One should not visit all these sanctified places and temples with sightseeing in mind, but one must go to such temples and sanctified places immortalized by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and be guided by proper men who know the science. This is called Anuvraja. Anu means to follow. It is therefore best to follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master, even in visiting temples and holy places of pilgrimage. One who does not move in that way is as good as a standing tree condemned by the Lord not to move. The moving tendency of the human being is misused by visiting places for sightseeing. The best purpose of such traveling tendencies should be fulfilled by visiting the holy places established by the great acharyas, and therefore not being misled by the atheistic propaganda of money-making men who have no knowledge of spiritual matters. Any temple where Krishna is being worshipped, any place where Krishna is being worshipped, where devotees are chanting the holy name, that is also a place of pilgrimage. It's not only Vrindavan and Mayapur and those specific places of Krishna's pastimes. The whole Sankirtan movement is also Krishna's pastimes. But the essence of this is all we should be hearing from the devotees, not just looking around. Like if we go to Vrindavan, it can be quite bewildering if we're just looking, because we see the pigs and trash everywhere and people misbehaving. But if the Prabhupada said Vrindavan is for hearing, not for seeing. The deity is for hearing. We have to chant, we have to hear the Bhagavatam. Otherwise, people come and look, and like in India, especially in some of our temples in the West, tourist buses come all the time, and they just look around, try to give them a little, kata, but basically they're just looking. Oh yeah, and take a few pictures, and they don't really hear much, but still they might get attracted. Some might hear something because we try to give everybody a book so they can hear. I hear a lot of noise behind now all of a sudden. Where's that coming from?
There's no noise from here, Maharaj. Everyone is muted.
Can you hear it? It's like really wild. All of a sudden it started.
Can any other person hear the noise? I'm not hearing from here. And everyone is muted, apart from my speaking. Jyoti Shori Prabhu, can you hear any sound?
I'm not muted, but I don't know. I don't see anything coming up.
Yeah. I can't see anything also from here. Then
It's not very strange. Sounds like the radio.
okay. Let me see. Let me close the YouTube page and share.
I don't see anything. No, it's not.
I can't see anything also from here. Then
It's not very strange. Sounds like the radio.
okay. Let me see.
I just turned off everything on my computer that could possibly be, but I don't see anything.
I just closed the YouTube that is on here also, the class YouTube. I'll just close it and then I'm not hearing the sound.
Okay, well, I don't know what. Sometimes they pick up the radio or something, but
It's possible, maybe.
let me log out and see if it's from me, but I'll be right back.
Okay, now.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Go again.
Hare Rama.
Okay, Maharaj. Is the noise still coming? Maharaj went out again.
Okay, I found it. My phone just started talking.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Okay, we go to the next verse.
Anyway, traveling, we go to the temple, we visit a devotee's house, we go on Harinam. The real purpose of moving around in the world. There's so many tourists everywhere, just looking at things, taking their selfie pictures in front of something, not at all knowing any, even the mundane history. Just, I've been here, I've been there. So 23. Person who has not at any time received the dust at the feet of the Lord's devotee, pure devotee on his head, is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Okay,
Okay.
get some.
Rasavan Prabhu, are you ready to? I think I see Rasavan Prabhu there. Okay, Jyoti Sharu Prabhu, can you read? Jyoti Sharu Prabhu. Jyoti
Hare
Sharu,
Krishna,
yeah.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Yeah. Yes, you can go ahead. Ravi.
Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the breathing dead body is a ghost. When a man dies, he is called dead. But when he again appears in the stable form, not visible to our present vision, and yet acts, such a dead body is called a ghost. Ghosts are always very bad elements, always creating a fearful situation for others. Similarly, a ghost-like non-devotee who have no respect for the pure devotees, nor for the Vishnu deities in the temples, create a fearful situation for the devotees at all times. The Lord never accepts any offering by such impure ghosts. There is a common saying that one should first love the dog of the beloved before one shows any loving sentiments for the beloved. The stage of pure devotion is attained by sincerely serving a pure devotee of the Lord. The first condition of devotional service to the Lord is therefore to be a servant of pure devotee. And this condition is fulfilled by a statement, reception of the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee who has also served other pure devotee. That is the way of pure disciple succession or devotional parampara. Maharaj Rahugana inquire from the great sage Jada Bharat as to how he had attained such a liberated state of the Paramhansa. And in answer, the great saint replied as follows. Bhagavatam 5.12.12. O King Rahugana, the perfectional stage of devotional service or the Paramhansa stage of life cannot be attained unless one is blessed by the dust of the feet of great devotees. It is never attained by tapasya, austerity, the Vedic worshipping process, acceptance of the renounced order of life, the discharge of the duties of household life, the chanting of the Vedic hymns, or the performance of penances is the hot sun within a cold water or before the blazing fire. In other words, Lord Shri Krishna is the property of his pure unconditional devotees, and as such only the devotees can deliver Krishna to another devotee. Krishna is never obtainable directly. Lord Chaitanya therefore designated himself as a Gopi Bharatu, Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasanu Dasa, or the most obedient servant of the Lord, who maintains a Gopi themselves as a Vrindavan at Vrindavan. A pure devotee therefore never approaches the Lord directly, but try to please the servant of the Lord servants, and thus the Lord become pleased. And only then can a devotee relish the taste of the tulsi leaves stuck to his lotus feet. In a Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord is never to be found by becoming a great scholar of Vedic literatures, but he is very easily approachable through his pure devotee. In Vrindavana, all the pure devotees pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Srimati Radharani is a tender-hearted, feminine counterpart of the Supreme Whole, resembling a perfectional stage of the whole worldly feminine nature. Therefore, a mercy of Radharani is available very readily to the sincere devotees. And once she recommends such a pure devotee, Lord Krishna, the Lord at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. The conclusion is therefore that one should be more serious about seeking the mercy of the devotee than that of the Lord directly. And by once doing so, by the good will of the devotee, the natural attraction for the service of the Lord will be revived. Hare Krishna.
All right. So by these purports, or many purports, but see how much work Prabhupada put into one purport. It was covering everything. Ghosts and, but this is interesting analogy. The breathing dead body is a ghost. That means people that are not God conscious, they're just dead bodies walking around. They're breathing, but there's no real life. Prabhupada, another place, he says they're just exhibiting symptoms of life. They're breathing, they're walking, they're talking, they're working, they're reproducing. But it's not really life without spiritual life. And then this example of loving the dog, of course, that's very applicable in the Western countries. In Africa, I don't see that as much. Maybe the rich people have these pet dogs and they practically worship the dog. Bali Prabhu's sister is a dog lover. She's got lots of dogs and she makes wonderful dog food and different things so there are a lot of people that love their dogs. But if you tell them, oh, this is a beautiful dog, I've never seen such a wonderful dog, they become very happy. Same thing as someone's child. So same thing, if Krishna sees us appreciating the devotees and serving devotees, and he becomes very happy. And he'll give us all blessings. Any comment on that? Otherwise, we'll move on. This one is a famous verse and something to make us think, sometimes a little frightening. Certainly that heart is steel framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change when one displays such signs of transformation as tears in the eyes and ecstatic standing of the hairs on end.
I'll take this one, Prophet. We should note with profit that in the first 3 chapters of the second canto, the gradual process of development of devotional service is being presented. In the first chapter, the first step in devotional service for God consciousness by the process of hearing and chanting has been stressed. And a gross conception of the personality of Godhead in its universal form for the beginners is recommended. By such a gross conception of God through the material manifestation of his energy, one is enabled to spiritualize the mind and the senses and gradually concentrate the mind upon vibration. The Supreme, who is present as the super soul in every act and everywhere, in every atom of the material universe. The system of Pancha Upasana, recommending 5 mental attitudes for the common man, is also enacted for this purpose, namely gradual development, worship of the superior, that may be in the form of fire, electricity, the sun, the mass of living beings, Lord Shiva, and at last, the impersonal super soul. The partial representation of Lord Vishnu. They are all nicely described in the second chapter, but in the third chapter, further development is prescribed after one has actually reached the stage of Vishnu worship. Up here, devotional service and the mature stage of Vishnu worship is suggested herein in relation to the change of art. The whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the art of the living being, the matter of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, as subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So with the progress of devotional service, the reaction of change in the art is exhibited by gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment, by a false sense of lording it over the world, and an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service to the Lord. By the Bhakti, or regulated devotional service by the limbs of the body, namely the eyes, the ears, the nose, the arms, and the legs, as already explained herein before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind, which is the impetus for all activities of the limbs of the body. It is expected by all means that by discharging regulated devotional service, one must manifest the change of art. If there is no such change, the art must be considered still framed, for it is not melted even when there is chanting of the holy of the Lord. We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of discharging devotional service, devotional duties, and if they are properly performed, there will follow the reactional ecstasy with signs of tears in the eyes and standing on the head on the body. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the Vaibhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfectional stage of prema, love of God. In the reaction, if the reaction does not take place, even after continuous hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord, it may be considered to be due to offenses only. That is the opinion of the Sandarbha. In the beginning of chanting of the holy name of the Lord, if the devotee has not been very careful about evading the kinds of offenses at the feet of the holy name, certainly the reactions of feeling of separation will not be visible by tears in the eyes and standing on the air on head. The Baba stage is the Baba stage is manifested by 8 transcendental symptoms, namely inactness, perspiration, standing of hairs on end, failing in the voice, trembling, paleness of the body, tears in the eyes, and finally trance. The nectar of devotion is summary study of the Srila Rupa Goswami Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Explain those symptoms and vividly describes other transcendental development, both in steady and accelerating manifestation. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has very critically discussed all these Baba displays in connection with some unscrupulous neophytes imitating the above symptoms for cheap appreciation. Not only Vishwanath Chakravarti, but also Srila Rupa Goswami treated them very. Sometimes all the above 8 symptoms of ecstasy are imitated by the mundane devotees, Prakrita Sahaja. But the serious symptoms are at once detected when one sees the serious devotees addicted to so many forbidden things. Even though decorated with the signs of a devotee, a person addicted to smoking, drinking, or illegitimate sex with women cannot have all the above mentioned ecstatic symptoms. But it is seen that sometimes these symptoms are willfully imitated. And for this reason, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accuses the imitators of being stone-hearted men. They are sometimes even affected by the reflections of such transcendental symptoms. Yet, if they still do not give up the forbidden habits, then they are helpless cases for transcendental realization. They are hopeless cases for transcendental realization. When Lord Chaitanya met Srila Ramananda Rai of Kava on the bank of the Godavari, the Lord developed all these symptoms. But because of the presence of some undevoted brahmanas who were attendants of the Raya, the Lord suppressed these symptoms. So sometimes they are not visible even in the body of the first class devotee for certain circumstantial reasons. Therefore, real steady Baba is definitely displayed in the matter of cessation of material desire, shanti, utilization of every moment in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and yata kalabhava, eagerness for glorifying the Lord constantly, namagane sadarushi, attraction for living in the land of the Lord, priti stad vashati stali, complete detachment from material happiness, virakti, and pridelessness, manas sunyata. One who has developed all of these transcendental qualities is really possessed of the Baba stage, as distinguished from the stone-hearted imitator of mundane devotees. The whole process can be summarized as follows. The advanced devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord in a perfectly offenseless manner and is friendly to everyone can actually release the transcendental taste of glorifying the Lord. And the result of such realization is reflected in the cessation of all material desires, etc. As mentioned above, the neophytes, due to their being in the lower stage of devotion service, are invariably envious, so much so that they invent their own ways and means of devotional regulations without following their chariots. As such, if they make a show of constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, they cannot release the transcendental taste of the holy name. Therefore, the show of tears in their eyes, trembling, perspiration, unconsciousness, etc., is condemned. They can, however, get in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord and rectify their bad habits. Otherwise, they shall continue to be stone-hearted and unfit for any treatment. A complete progressive march on the return path back to God will depend on the instructions of the revealed scriptures directed by realized devotee. Hare Krishna.
So that's quite serious. How many are on that platform? That's just, so we have steel framed hearts. But we're very fortunate that Lord Chaitanya, and especially Prabhupada representing Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda's extreme mercy, will accept our efforts, even though we may not be, so much on that platform, but we're trying. If one is taking a bath, you don't criticize that he's dirty. You think, not happy that he's taking a bath. He's cleaning the house. That's good. If you're washing the dirty car, and you don't say, oh, he has a dirty car. You say he's washing. So you should see that in any devotee, not criticize devotees as they're not perfect. So there are many, especially in Bengal, that imitate these symptoms. A pure devotee who really has these symptoms won't exhibit them. There's a lot of information there about the different stages of spiritual development, what real bhava is. And bhava, still prema comes after bhava. But we can't jump. Yesterday was the appearance day of Ramananda Roy. He was on that stage so advanced that he could bathe and massage young, beautiful girls. And Lord Chaitanya said, but nobody but him could do that. Nobody but him could not be disturbed. Because he was actually a gopi himself. It was a combination of, I think, Vishaka and Arjuna. Quite amazing. Okay, couple more verses in this section of study. O Sutta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please therefore explain to us, as it was spoken by the great devotee Sukadeva Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge and who spoke to Maharaj Parikshit upon being asked. Now the sages are glorifying. They want to hear.
Knowledge explained by the previous acharya.
Knowledge explained by the previous acharya, like Sukadeva Goswami, and followed by the next, like Sutta, is always powerful transcendental knowledge. Therefore, penetrating and useful to the submissive students.
The friends the Bhakti will the purport of the second canto, third chapter. Additional Bhagavad and
In the lesson plan, it says we go up to verse 28, but there's no verse 28. So anyway, that section was all analogies, comparison to, well, basic comparison is the devotee to the non-devotee, the living entity to the non-living. Zombies are popular now in television and movies, and they were anyway a few years ago. They're supposed to be the non-living dead or something, but everybody's like that. They're just being manipulated by the modes of nature and thinking that they're special, they're enjoyers. We were going on Harinam last night in this university town, and they have these wagons. It's a bar, for whiskey and beer, but it moves by, everybody's sitting, it moves by pedaling like a bicycle. So all the customers, while they're drinking, to make that thing move, they're pedaling this thing and it moves down the street, and they're all laughing and thinking that there's something very special. So it's quite obvious how foolish the whole thing is, but still people are just busy like that. Somehow, every kind of foolish, working so hard just so they can eat and sleep. So when Prabhupada is saying they're like animals, he's not, the animals are better because that's their karma. But the humans who live like animals with no God consciousness, that's what it means. Animals can sometimes exhibit more love and loyalty, and and they're never against God. They just don't know anything. Then there's some animals that are very fortunate and somehow live with devotees. And eat prasadam. They got some at the Govardhan Eco Village. They got some big dogs to, be like guards. But they ate so much prasadam, they just became very peaceful, friendly dogs. But anyway, that's we want to take care of mainly the animal-like people. They're just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and they're very proud of it. Very proud if they can go to an expensive restaurant and eat, overeat, eat many varieties of things, get meat imported from all over the world or beer from all over the world. That is a total waste of human life. Okay, next lesson is chapter 4. Yeah.
Before we go to the next lesson on this change of heart, I'm just reflecting. Prabhupada in the last, second to the last text, he gave so much of emphasis on the progressive development of change of heart. And he emphasized that if there is no change of heart, it's as a result of offenses. That the only offenses could make one not to exhibit the qualities of symptoms of love of God if he is chanting the holy name. Then he went further to give some points. After talking about the sadhyakas, Prabhupada emphasized that so the real symptoms of one who is actually advanced, he gave about 7 symptoms. So looking at, we won't say that we can identify a pure devotee, because sometimes within the devotee conversation, someone says that you don't know who is a pure devotee, so you don't make offenses. Because when you try to speak, or you try to correct, or you try to make comments, then someone says, no, you cannot say, because you don't know who is a pure devotee. But by these descriptions of Srila Prabhupada, we clearly can see one who is actually exhibiting the quality of a devotee.
Yes, that's correct. So like in Vrindavan, but people come in the temple, sometimes they roll on the ground, and one temple commander, he'd heard, so he kicked him out or kind of treated him roughly. And Prabhupada was very upset. He said, you have to go find that person and apologize. Okay, anything else? So better to be respectful to everyone, and maybe you'll be respectful to someone who's not a pure devotee, than to try to judge, because we can't judge you by any external symptom or anything. You can't know. Okay.
Okay, man.
That's why we say we offer our respectful obeisance to all Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Next, so we're starting with chapter 4, starting with text 17 for some reason. I'll read the Sanskrit for the first verse. tapasvino dana para yashasvino manasvino mantra vida sumangalaha Chaimam navindanti vina yadarpanam tasmai subhadra shavase namo namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna again and again, because the great learned sages, the great performers of charity, the great workers of distinction, the great philosophers and mystics, the great chanters of the Vedic hymns, and the great followers of the Vedic principles cannot achieve any fruitful result without dedication of such great qualities to the service of the Lord. Okay, pick a person for purport.
Okay, I'll read this one, then I'll move on to other devotees to us. Advancement of learning, a charitable disposition, political, social, or religious leadership of human society, philosophical speculation, the practice of the yoga system, expertise in the Vedic rituals, and all similar highly quality in man serve one and the attainment of perfection only when they are employed in the service of the Lord. Without such dovetailing, all such qualities become sources of trouble for people in general. Everything can be utilized either for one's own sense gratification or in the service of one other than oneself. There are two kinds of self-interest also, namely personal selfishness and extended selfishness. But there is no qualitative difference between personal and extended selfishness. Theft for personal interest or for the family interest is of the same quality, namely criminal. A thief pleading not guilty because of committing theft, not for personal interest, but for the interest of society or country, has never been excused by the established law of any country. People in general have no knowledge that the self-interest of a living being attains perfection only when such an interest coincides with the interest of the Lord. For an example, what is the interest of maintaining body and soul together? One earns money for maintenance of the body, personal or social. But unless there is God consciousness, unless the body is being properly maintained to realize one's realization of with God, all good efforts to maintain body and soul together are similar to the attempts of the animal to maintain body and soul together. The purpose of maintaining the human body is different from that of the animals. Similarly, advancement of learning, economic development, philosophical research, studied in the Vedic literature, or even the execution of pious activities like charity, opening of hospitals, and distribution of food grains should be done in relation to the Lord. The aim of all such acts and endeavors must be pleasure of the Lord and not the satisfaction of any other identity. Individual or collective, Samsiddha Ari Toshana. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:27, the same principle is confirmed, where it is said that whatever we may eat, whatever we may give in charity, and whatever we may observe in austerity, must be given over to the Lord or be done on his account only. The expert leader of the godless human civilization cannot bring about a fruitful result in all their different attempts at educational advancement or economic development unless they are God conscious. And to become God conscious, one has to hear about the all auspicious Lord as he is described in literature like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam.
Extended selfishness, that's interesting. Mentioned this extended selfishness. Like I I was talking to one Indian guy and we were asking for donations, he said, no, I'm completely renounced. I don't keep anything I don't do anything for myself. I give everything to my wife and children. But that's yourself, that's the expansion of yourself. So, real selfishness means giving everything to Krishna, realizing everything belongs to Krishna. There's a very famous verse. Next one. Very important for us to understand the causeless mercy of the Lord and to make our preaching. I heard, because there's so much prejudice, we decide these persons are not qualified. This type of tribal people are not qualified. This type of religious people, but that's not the point. I heard there's one temple in South India and they had this verse written on a stone somewhere. And the head priest there said, Prabhupada understood this. We don't understand it. Prabhupada had realization. Therefore, he could go anywhere in the world and preach and make devotees. Kirata, Unanda, Pulinda, Pukasha, Abira, Samba, Yavana, Sadaya, Rene, Chapapa, Yadapa, Shraya, Shraya, Sujanti Tasmai, Prabhavishnave Namaha. Kiratas, Hunas, Andras, Pulindas, Pulkashas, Abiras, Shumba, Yavana, members of the Kasa races, and even others addicted to sinful acts, can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord, due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. This purport explains all these different so-called uncivilized, low-class people that are considered, of course, they consider themselves very special. Okay, who will read?
Madhavan Prabhu, is your turn now. Madhavan Prabhu, can you read? Madhavan Prabhu. Madhavan Prabhu. Okay, Tamala Krishna Prabhu, you go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Madhavan Prabhu, welcome back. Tamala Krishna Prabhu is happy.
Okay.
Okay, Tamala Krishna Prabhu, go ahead. Tamala Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Karata, a providence of old Bharata Vasa, mentioned in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata. Generally, the Karatas are known as the Aboriginal tribe of India, and in modern days of Santa Pajanas in Bihar, and Chata, Mapo might comprise the old previous name Karata. Pune, the area of East Germany and part of Russia, is known as previous as the Hunas. Accordingly, sometimes a kind of hill tribe is known as the Hunas. Andhra, a previous is Northern India, mentioned in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata. It is still extant under the same name. Pulanda, it is mentioned in the Mahabharata, Adipava 17438, with the inhabitants of the previous providence of the name Puranda. This country was conquered by Bhismana and Suhadeva. The Greek are known as Pulandas, and it is mentioned in the Vena Pava of Mahabharata that the non-Vedic race of this part of the world will rule over the world. This Pulandra province was also one of the provinces of Bharata, and the inhabitants were classified among the Kshatriyas king. But later on, due to their giving up the Brahmanica culture, they were mentioned as preachers, just as those who are not followers of the Islamic culture are called Kafi. And those who are not following of the Christian culture are called heathens. Abira, this name also appears in the Mahabharata, both in the Sabha and Bhishma Pava. It is mentioned that this province was situated in the river Saraswati, in the Sang, and modern Sang province formerly extended on the other side of the Arabian Sea. All the inhabitants of that province were known as the Abiras. They were under the domination of Maharaj Yudhishthira. And according to the statements of Markandeya, the marchers of this part of the world would also rule over Bharata. Later on, this proved to be truth, as in the case of the Purandas. On behalf of the Purandas, Alexander the Great conquered India, and on behalf of the Abiras, Muhammad Gori conquered India. Those Abiras were also formerly Kshatriyas, within the Brahmanica culture, but they give up the connection. The Kshatriyas who were afraid of Parasurama and had hidden themselves in the Caucasian hill region, later on become known as the Abiras, and the place the inhabited was known as Abiradasa. Sambas or Kankas, the inhabitants of the Kanka province of Old Bharata, mentioned in the Mahabharata. Javanas was the name of one of the sons of Maharaj Yayati, who was given the part of the world known as Turkey to rule. Therefore, The Turkish are Javanas due to being descendant of Maharaj Javana. The Javanas were therefore Kshatriyas, and later on, by giving up the Brahmanical culture, they become Mocha Javanas. This description of the Javanas are in the Mahabharata Adipava 85.34. Another prince called Tuvasu was also known as Javana, and his country was conquered by Sahadeva. One of the Pandavas, the western Javana, joined with Yudhana in the Battle of Kurasatra under the pressure of Karna. It is also foretold that those Yavanas also would conquer India, and it proved to be truth. Kasha, the inhabitants of the Kasha Disa are mentioned in the Mahabharata Drona Parva. Those who are stunted group of hair on the upper lip are generally called Kashas. As such, the Kasha are the Mongols, the Chinese, and others who are so designated. The above mentioned historical names are different mentions of the world. Even those who are constantly engaged in sinful acts are all corrigible to standard of perfect human being if they take shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Jesus Christ and Muhammad, who powerful devotees of the Lord, have done tremendous service on behalf of the Lord on the surface of the group. And from the version of Srila Sukadev Goswami, it appeared that instead of roaming a godly civilization in the present context of the world situation, if the leadership of the world affair is entrusted to the devotees of the Lord, for which a worldwide organization under the name and skills of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has already been started, then by the grace of the Almighty Lord, there can be a true change of heart in human beings all over the world, because the devotees of the Lord are able, authorized to effect such a change by purifying the dust worm mind of the people in general. The politicians of the world may remain in their respective position because the pure devotees of the Lord are not interested in political leadership or diplomatic implications. The devotees are interested only in seeing that the people in general are not misguided by political propaganda, and in seeing that the variable life of a human being is not spoiled in following a type of civilization which is ultimately, if the politicians therefore would be guided by the good council of the devotees, then certainly there will be a great change in the world situation by the purified propaganda of the devotees, as shown by Lord Chaitanya, as Sukadev Goswami begins his prayer by discussing the word Yat Ketanam. So also, Lord Chaitanya recommended that simple by glorify the Lord holy name, a tremendous change of heart can take place by which the complete misunderstanding between the human nation created by politicians can at once be extinguished. And after the extension of the fire of misunderstanding, other profits will follow. The distinction is to go back home, back to Godhead, as we have several times discussed in those pages. According to the court of devotion, generally known as the Vaishnava court, there is no bar against anyone advancing in the matter of God realization. A Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into Vaishnava, even a Ketana, Karata, etc. As above mentioned, in the Bhagavad Gita 9:38, it is said by the Lord that there is no bar to become a devotee of the Lord, even for those who are low birth, low born, or woman, Sudra, or Vyasa, Vyas. And by becoming a devotee, everyone is eligible to return home, back to Godhead. The only qualification is that one takes shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord who has truly knowledge in the transcendental science of Krishna. Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyone from any part of the world who become well conversant in the science of Krishna become a pure devotee and spiritual master for general mass of people, and by reclaim them by purification of heart. Though a person be even the most sinful man, he can at once be purified by systematical contact with a pure Vaishnava. A Vaishnava, therefore, can accept a bona fide disciple from any part of the world without any consideration of caste and greed, and promote him by regulative principle to the status of a pure Vaishnava who is transcendental to Brahmanical culture. The system of caste or Varnashrama Dharma is no longer regularly enough, even amongst the so-called followers of the system. Nor is it now possible to re-establish the institutional function in the present context of social, political, and economical revolution without any reference to the particular custom of a country. One can be accepted to the Vaishnava court spiritually, and there is no hindrances in the transcendental progress. So by the order of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the court of Srimad Bhagavatam, all the Bhagavad Gita can be preached all over the world, reclaiming all persons willing to accept the transcendental court. Such culture propaganda by the devotee will certainly be accepted by all persons who are reasonable and inquisitive without any particular breeze for the custom of the country. The Vaishnava never accepts another Vaishnava on the basis of a birthright, just as he never think of the deity of the Lord in the temple as an idol. And to remove all doubt in this connection, Sri Sukha Dev Goswami has invoked the blessing of the Lord, who is all powerful, Baba Vaishnava Namaha. As the all powerful Lord accept the humble service of his devotee in devotional activities of the Archana. His form as the worshipable deity in the temple. Similarly, the body of a pure Vaishnava changed transcendentally at once when he gave himself up to the service of the Lord and is trained by the qualified Vaishnava, the injunction of Vaishnava regulation. In this connection, run as follows: Acha Vaishnava Sri Da Gurusu Nara Nitya Vaishnava Jati Buddhi Sri Vishnu Namni Sabasana Samaya Buddhi, etc. One should not consider the deity of the Lord as worshipped in the temple to be an idol, nor should be considered authorized spiritual master an ordinary man, nor should one consider a pure Vaishnava to belong to a particular case, etc. Padma Purana. The conclusion is that the Lord, being all powerful, can under any and every circumstances accept anyone from any part of the world, neither personally or through his bona fide manifestation as spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya accepts many devotees from communities other than the Vanashramitis, and he himself declared to teach us that he does not belong to any chase or social order of life, but that he is eternal servant of the Lord, who maintain the damsel of Vrindavana, Lord Krishna. That is the way of self-realization. Hare Krishna.
Now
Hare
that
Krishna.
this is a famous verse of Lord Chaitanya. Naham vipro nacha narapatir napi vaisho na shudro. Naham varni nacha griha patir na vanasto yatirva. Kintu Projan Nikila Paramananda Purnamrita Bir Gopi Bartu Pada Kamalayor Dasu Das Anudasa. I am not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya, not a Sudra, nor am I a Brahmachari or a householder or a Vanaprastha or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal bliss. He's always existing with brilliance. So this amazing purport, amazing verse, and something we should really remember. And again, like I say, Prabhupada, he had full realization So he went to America, which is the Ye Chapapa Yadapashayasya. There's no particular, and you can say, okay, in Africa, there Kirata, you can say in someplace there Casa, and but in America is everything all mixed up, dedicated to sinful activity. America has done so much to spread sinful activity all over the world with their about Hollywood and their television and products and junk food and everything. Prabhupada, he said when he got there, he said, Krishna, I don't know why you sent me to such a sinful place, such a horrible place. And other people may think this is a great place because there's everywhere, every kind of sinful activity is available indiscriminately. But he preached to anyone and everyone. He never considered where they were coming from. He just considered where they were going. If they were willing to listen to him, he preached to them. And therefore he made so many devotees. But that's the preaching spirit. You can go to any town and village. You can go to the jungle people or whatever. You don't discriminate, like Nigeria, they're trying to make everybody think I am a Nigerian, and not that I'm a Yoruba or a Hausa or a Hebrew, but that's still bodily conscious. But we want everyone to think I'm a spirit soul, I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Then there can be real peace and happiness. And then if we have that consciousness in the temple and we're not prejudiced about anybody's background or anybody's gender or whatever, then we make so many devotees. All right, that's a long one. Again, you can see how much just for us to read it takes so long. You can imagine for Prabhupada to write these things. Prabhupada wasn't simply translating, he was composing very carefully to guide us for the rest of 10,000 years. Okay, next verse. He is the super soul and supreme Lord of all self-realized souls. He is the personification of the Vedas, religious scriptures, and austerities. He is worshipped by Lord Brahma and Shiva and all those who are transcendental to all pretensions. Being so revered with awe and veneration, may that supreme absolute be pleased with me. All right, who wants to read now?
Madhavan, can you come now?
Yes, I am. The purport, the Supreme Lord. Yes, there. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. The Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, although the love of followers of different self-realization, knowing only those who are above all pretensions. Everyone is searching for eternal peace or eternal life. And with an aim to this destination, everyone either studying this church or undergoing the austerity as empiric philosophers, as mystics, yogis, or as unalloyed devotees, etc. But the Supreme Lord is perfectly realized by the devotees only because they are above all pretensions. Those who are on the path of self-realization are generally classified as karmis, jnanis, yogis, or devotees of the Lord. The karmis, who are much attracted by the fruitive activities of the Vedic rituals, are called bhukti kahami, or those who desire liberation from material existence. The mystic yogis, who practice different types of austerities for attainment of these kinds of material perfections, and who ultimately meet the super soul, Paramatma, in trance, are called Siddhi Kami, or those who desire the perfection of becoming finer than the finest, heavier than the heaviest, and who desire to get everything desired, to have control over everyone, or to create everything liked, etc. All these are capacities for a powerful yogi. But the devotees of the Lord do not want anything like that for self-satisfaction. They want only to serve the Lord because the Lord is great, and as living entities, they are eternally subordinate, part and parcel of the Lord. This perfect realization of the self by the devotee helps him to become desireless, to desire nothing for his personal self, and thus devotees are called niskami, without any desire. A living entity, by its constitutional position, cannot be void of all desires. The bhukti kami, mukti kami, and siddhi kami all desire something for personal satisfaction. But the niskami, devotees of the Lord, desire everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. They are completely dependent on the orders of the Lord and are always ready to discharge their duty for the satisfaction of the Lord. In the beginning, Arjuna placed himself as one of those who desire self-satisfaction, but he desired not to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, but to make him desireless. The Lord preached the Bhagavad Gita, in which the ways of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Hatha Yoga, and also Bhakti Yoga were explained. Because Arjuna was without any pretension, he changed his decision and satisfied the Lord by agreeing to fight. Kasriye Vakanam Tava. And thus he became desireless. The example of Brahma and Lord Shiva are specifically cited here because Brahmaji, Lord Shiva, Srimati Lakshmiji, and the four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, etc., are leaders of the four desireless Vaishnava Sampradayas. They are all free from all pretension. Srila Jiva Goswami interprets the word Jata Vyalikai as Vijita Vaisavai, or those who are free from all pretensions. They are unalloyed devotees only. In the Chintan Charitamrita, it is said, Bhukti Mukti.
Krishna Bhakti Nishkama Attaeva Shanta Mukti Mukti Siddhi Sakala Ashanta. Those who are after fruit of results for their pious activities, those who desire salvation and identity with the Supreme, and those who desire material perfections of mystic power are all restless because they want something for themselves. Because they want something for themselves, but the devotee is completely peaceful because he has no demand for himself, always ready to serve the desire of the Lord. So you see these preachers and whatever, I see those Hindu, so-called Indian ones in Africa and the Christians, promising material gain, whether it's mystic power or money or, whatever. And they get a lot of followers because that's what people want, unfortunately. But that's not spiritual. And they're always on it. They're never peaceful. They're never ashanti. The devotee is peaceful. The conclusion is, therefore, that the Lord is for everyone, because no one can achieve the result of his respective desires without his sanction. And it is stated by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, all such results are awarded by him only, for the Lord is Adishwara, the original controller. And everyone, namely the Vedantists, the great Karma Kandiyas, the great religious leaders, the great performers of austerity, and all who are striving for spiritual advancement, but ultimately he is realized by the pretensionless devotees only. Therefore, special stress is given to the devotional service of the Lord by Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Okay, any comment or question there? What question you might have? It's a lot, you know, every one of these purports is, we could go for days and days taking it apart. Prabhupada packed so much into every sentence, you know. But whether we can understand it or remember it fully is not the most important, but by hearing it, we're getting purified. And when we're purified in heart and we're not distracted by too many other desires, then everything will come out nicely. Text 20. May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipable Lord of all devotees, the protector and glory of all kings, like Andaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices, and therefore the leader of all living entities, the controller of all intelligence, and the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, the supreme incarnation on earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful on me. So there's some definition of what is Krishna, if anybody ever asks you. Right? Okay. If anybody says who is Krishna, you can say he's the worshipable Lord of all devotees. He's the protector and glory of kings. He's the husband of the goddess of fortune. He's a director of all sacrifices and therefore the leader of all living entities. He's the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on earth, the supreme all in all, and we're begging for mercy. Now, he wouldn't want to tell maybe somebody all those things, depending on what kind of person you tell some of them. You know, pick out the ones that they could appreciate. Like, you know, Christians say God is great. Muslims say Allah Akbar, that's God is great. So how is he great? We agree God is great. We're not against their talk, but we can give more information. How is he great? You know, they know these things too. And in the 99 names of Allah, many of these things are mentioned. So we can, you know, in this way relate to everybody and understand for ourselves. We need the mercy. Mercy is the main factor. Mercy only comes when one is humble and surrendered. Mercy is always there, but you got to take it. Puffed up person can't take the mercy. Okay, we have time to read this purport, and that's it. And all right.
Jyoti Sharup Prabhu. Jyoti Sharup. Jyoti Sharup Prabhu, are you there?
A really long one, so let's break it up, you know. Different people can read it.
Okay.
It's really long. It seems even longer than
Yeah.
some of the. This, I think this one is too long to finish today. We'll read it as much as we can.
I'll
Okay.
start with the reading.
Yeah.
Says Sukadeva Goswami is one of the prominent Gata Vyaplikas who are freed from all misconception. He therefore expresses his own real life perception of Lord Sri Krishna. As being the sum total of all perfection. Everyone is seeking the favor of the goddess of fortune, but people do not know that Lord Sri Krishna is the beloved husband of all goddesses of fortune. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord, in his transcendental abode, the local Vrindavan, is accustomed to adding the Surabhi cows and is served there by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune All these goddesses of fortune are manifestation of his transcendental pleasure potency, Vladimir Shakti, in his internal energy. And when the Lord manifested himself on this earth, he practically displayed the activities of his pleasure potency in his Ras Leela just to attract the conditioned souls, who are all after the phantasmagoria pleasure potency in degraded self-enjoyment. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Sukadev Goswami, who was completely detached from the abominable sex life of the material world, discuss this act of the Lord's pleasure potency certainly not in relation to sex, but to release a transcendental taste inconceivable to the mundaners who are after sex life. Sex life in the mundane world is the root cause of being conditioned by the shadow in the sex life of the mundane world. Nor does the manifestation of the Lord's pleasure potency have any connection with such degraded things. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a strict sannyasi, so much so that he did not allow any woman to come near him, nor even to bow down and offer respect. He never even asked the prayers of the Deva that's offered in the temple of Jagannath, sung by the fair sex. Yet, even in the rigid preferred by the gopis of Vrindavan as the topmost loving service possible to be rendered to the Lord. And Srimati Radharani is the principal head of all such goddesses of fortune. And therefore, she is the pleasure counterpart of the Lord and is non-different from Krishna for performing different types of sacrifices in order to achieve the greatest benefits in life. Such benedictions as the result of performing great sacrifices are, after all, favors given by the goddess of fortune. And the Lord, being the husband or lover of the goddess of fortune, is factually the Lord of all sacrifices also. He is the final enjoyer of all kinds of yajna. Therefore, yajna party is another name of Lord Vishnu. It is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita that everything be done for the yajna party. Yajnata karmana, for otherwise one's act will be the cause of conditioning by the laws of material nature. Those who are not free from all misconception, vyalika, perform sacrifices to please the minor demigods. But the devotees of the Lord know very well that Lord Sri Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of all performances of sacrifice. Therefore, they perform the Sankirtan Yajna, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, which is especially recommended in this age of Kali. In Kali Yuga, performance of other types of sacrifices is not feasible due to insufficient arrangements and inexpert priesthood. We have information from the Bhagavad Gita 3:10 to 11 that Lord Brahma, after giving rebirth to the conditioned soul within the universe, instructed them to perform sacrifices and to lead a prosperous life. With such sacrifice performances, the conditioned soul will never be in difficulty in keeping body and soul together. Ultimately, they can purify their existence. They will find natural promotions into spiritual existence. The real identity of the living entity, a conditioned soul, should never give up the practice of sacrifice, charity, and austerity in any circumstances. The aim of all such sacrifices is to please the Yagya Party, the personality of God. Therefore, the Lord is also Prajapati, according to the Katha Upanishad. The one Lord is the leader of the innumerable living entities. The living entities are maintained by this Lord. Eko Bahuna Vidati Karma. The Lord is therefore called the Supreme Bhuta, or maintainer of all living beings. Living beings are proportionately endowed with intelligence in terms of their previous activities. All living beings are not equally endowed with the same quality of intelligence because the such development of intelligence is the control of the Lord, as declared in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. As for Mahatma, Super Soul, the Lord is living in everyone's heart, and from him only does one's power of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness follow. Mata Smriti Gyanam Apo Anam Cha. One person can chapter remember past activities by the grace of the Lord, while others cannot. One is highly intelligent by the grace of the Lord, and one is a fool by the same control. Therefore, the Lord is Diyam Pati, or the Lord of intelligence. The conditions through strive to become lords of the material world. Everyone is trying to lord it over the material nature by applying his highest degree of intelligence. This misuse of intelligence by the conditioned soul is called madness. One's full intelligence should be applied to get free from the material clutches. But the conditioned soul, due to the madness only, engages his full energy and intelligence in self gratification. And to achieve this end of life, he willfully commits all sorts of misdeeds. The result is that instead of attaining an unconditional life of full freedom, the mad conditioned soul is entangled again and again in different types of bondage in material bodies. Everything we see in the material manifestation is but the recreation of the Lord. Therefore, he is the real proprietor of everything in the universes. The conditioned soul can enjoy a fragment of this material creation under the control of the Lord, but not self-sufficiency. That is the instruction in the Isopanishad. One should be satisfied with things awarded by the Lord of the universe. It is act of madness only that one tries to encroach upon another's share of material possessions. The Lord of the universe, out of his causeless mercy upon the conditions soul, descends by his own energy, Atma Maya, to re-establish this eternal relationship of the conditioned soul within. He instructs all to surrender unto him instead of falsely claiming to be the enjoyer of a certain limit under his control. When he so descends, he proves how much greater is his ability to enjoy, and he exhibits his power of enjoyment by, for instance, marrying 16,000 wives at once. The conditioned soul is very proud of becoming the husband of even one wife, but the Lord laughs at this. This intelligent man can know who is the real husband factually. The Lord is the husband of all the women in his creation, but the conditioned soul under the control of the Lord feels proud to be the husband of one or two wives. All these qualifications, as the different types of party mentioned in this verse, are mentioned, and Sukadev Goswami has therefore especially mentioned the party of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty knew that Lord Sri Krishna is everything, and all of them instead intended to return to Lord Krishna after he had finished his transcendental pastime on the earth. The Yadu dynasty was animated by the will of the Lord because its members had to return home with the Lord. The annihilation of the Yadu dynasty was a material show created by the Supreme. Otherwise, the Lord and the members of the Yadu dynasty are all eternal associates. The Lord is therefore the guide of all devotees, and as such, Sukadev Goswami offered him due respect with love, leading feelings. Hare Krishna.
Jai, you made it. Okay. So wonderful. More of the same. Here we're just getting more like what is Krishna exactly, which is necessary. There's a lot of information earlier about conditioned life and what it's like to be separated from Krishna. But the whole point is bhakti, is serving Krishna. That's all the Bhagavatam is about when you get down to it. All right, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Arad. Please,
Thank
devotees,
you.
kindly all on
Hare
mute.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare.
Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama, Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
That's the
Hare.
big house you have.
Bhakti
So.
Prabhupada.
Yacha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
So dear devotees, the other devotees are not here. I think there are only 5 of us here. Some devotees are not coming regularly, and the coordinator of this program, Chitan Prema Prabhu, he has requested me to actually inform those of us that are regular that we should keep it up, but it might likely be exiting some of the students out of the class because of their lack of regular attendance. But in addition to that, he also wanted us to discuss which day will be convenient within a week that we can have the exams, because the modules are very loaded, and he doesn't want us to take too long a time to finish it. So he's suggesting that if we can all decide and choose a date within a week of next week, whichever, when we can agree to write the next exam instead of obstructing the
Instead
normal
of being
Sunday.
Saturday or Sunday.
Instead of our normal Sunday, he's saying that the Sunday examination will be obstructed. It will engage time, and he wants to. He doesn't want to interrupt my rights. Because we don't, one unit, the second unit, Maharaj is doing 2 units together. So he's suggesting that for the unit that has been completed, we need to write the exam on a day within the week that we can have this exam done. So we want us to make suggestions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, no.
Hare Krishna.
Please, I'm very sorry. During the program, our lecture, there is a daylight robbery happening in environment. So I decided not to react, but it starts bringing calls, starts for us interrupting my network. So I will have to leave now. So whatever, maybe on the line. Krishna.
Is it on the wall? Is it on the wall over there?
No, this is more premier side.
Huh?
No, this is popular side, not the world.
Okay. I thought you said okay.
So
Okay, sorry, Prabhu.
Krishna will protect all of us.
Sorry, Prabhu, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, maybe we'll allow all of us to go. Tomorrow we can discuss it after the class. Let us think about it.
Okay. That one to be okay.
Okay. So by tomorrow after the class, we can decide what time we feel comfortable within a week. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for being here. Hare Krishna.